Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Enjoy the video. The next morning arrived all too soon. Emily stood at the airport security checkpoint, her passport and boarding pass clutched tightly in her hand. Maya stood beside her, having insisted on coming to see her off. "You've got this, Em," Maya said, pulling her into a tight hug. "Go show Milan what you're made of." Emily hugged her back fiercely, fighting back tears. "I'll call you as soon as I land." "You better," Maya replied, her own voice thick with emotion. "Now go, before I decide to stow away in your luggage." With one last wave, Emily made her way through security. As she walked towards her gate, she felt a strange mix of emotions: fear, excitement, anticipation. But underneath it all was a sense of rightness, of stepping into the person she was always meant to be. The flight to Milan was long, giving Emily plenty of time to alternately doze and panic. By the time the plane touched down at Malpensa Airport, she was a bundle of nerves and jet lag. As she made her way through customs, she couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement. She was in Italy. The air seemed different somehow, charged with possibility. A driver was waiting for her at the arrivals area, holding a sign with her name. As they drove into the city, Emily pressed her face against the window, drinking in the sights of Milan. The architecture, the fashion, the sheer energy of the place. It was intoxicating. The car pulled up in front of a sleek, modern hotel. "You're home for the next week, signorina," the driver said with a smile. "Buona fortuna with your casting." Emily thanked him and stepped out of the car, her eyes wide as she took in the hotel. This was a far cry from the budget accommodations she was used to. At the reception desk, she was greeted by a friendly young woman with impeccable English. "Welcome to Milan, Miss Thompson. We hope you'll find everything to your satisfaction. There's a package waiting for you in your room with information about your schedule for the week." Emily's room was on the 10th floor, with a stunning view of the city skyline. She barely had time to appreciate it, though, before her eyes landed on the large garment bag hanging in the closet and the thick envelope on the desk. With trembling hands, she opened the envelope. Inside was a detailed schedule for the week, including fittings, photo shoots, and, of course, the all-important casting call. There was also a handwritten note from Alessandra Rossi herself. "Emily, welcome to Milan. I look forward to seeing what you bring to the runway. Remember, confidence is your best accessory." Emily sat heavily on the bed, her head spinning. This was really happening. She was in Milan, about to participate in one of the biggest events in the fashion world. She reached for her phone, dialing Maya's number. Despite the time difference, Maya picked up on the second ring. "Em, you made it!" Emily laughed, feeling some of her tension dissipate at the sound of her friend's voice. "I made it! Maya, this place is incredible. The hotel, the city. I feel like I'm in a dream." "Well, don't pinch yourself just yet," Maya teased. "You've got a big week ahead of you. Have you looked at your schedule yet?" Emily glanced at the papers spread out on the bed. "Yeah, it's pretty intense. I've got fittings tomorrow, then some kind of orientation for all the new models. The actual casting isn't until the end of the week. That's good. Gives you time to settle in and get over the jet lag. Have you unpacked yet? Did you remember to bring the good luck charm I gave you?" Emily's hand went to her neck, where a small silver pendant hung. It had been a gift from Maya just before she left. "Of course I did. I'm not taking it off all week." They chatted for a few more minutes before Maya insisted Emily get some rest. "You need to look fresh for those fittings tomorrow. Go to bed, supermodel." After hanging up, Emily forced herself to unpack and get ready for bed, even though her body clock was completely confused. As she lay in the luxurious hotel bed, staring out at the twinkling lights of Milan, she felt a surge of determination. "I'm here," she thought. "I've made it this far. Now it's time to show them what I can do." The next morning, Emily woke early, her body still on New York time. She took advantage of the extra hours to pamper herself with a long shower and careful application of her makeup. As she stood in front of the full-length mirror, she barely recognized herself. Gone was the hesitant, unsure person she had been just a few months ago. In her place stood a confident young woman ready to take on the world of high fashion. The hormones had worked their magic, softening her features and curves, but it was more than that. There was a light in her eyes, a set to her shoulders that spoke of someone who had found her true self. She arrived at the fitting location 15 minutes early, her heart pounding with anticipation. The building was a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and steel beams. Inside, it was a hive of activity, models, designers, and assistants bustling about with purposeful energy. Emily Thompson? A harried-looking assistant approached her, clipboard in hand. "Follow me, please. We'll start with hair and makeup, then move on to the fittings." The next few hours passed in a blur of hairspray, powder, and fabric. Emily tried on what felt like hundreds of outfits, each more stunning than the last. She twirled and posed, following the instructions of the fitters and photographers with growing confidence. During a brief break, she found herself chatting with another model, a willowy blonde named Sophia. "First time in Milan?" Sophia asked, sipping delicately from a water bottle. Emily nodded. "Is it that obvious?" Sophia laughed, a tinkling sound like wind chimes. "Only a little. Don't worry, we were all new once. Stick with me, I'll show you the ropes." As they returned to the fittings, Emily felt a warmth in her chest. She was making friends, fitting in. This world that had once seemed so far out of reach was becoming her reality. The orientation for new models took place that evening in a sleek conference room at Alessandra Rossi's headquarters. Emily sat near the front, drinking in every word as various industry professionals spoke about what to expect during Fashion Week. "Remember," one speaker said, her eyes sweeping across the room, "you are not just wearing clothes. You are selling a dream, an aspiration. Every step, every pose should exude confidence and allure." Emily scribbled notes furiously, determined to remember every detail. As the orientation wrapped up, she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to see Alessandra Rossi herself standing there, a small smile playing on her lips. "Emily? A word?" Heart pounding, Emily followed Alessandra to a quiet corner of the room. "I've been watching you today," Alessandra said, her gaze intense. "You have a natural grace that's quite rare in newcomers." Emily flushed with pride. "Thank you, Miss Rossi. I'm trying my best to learn and improve." Alessandra nodded approvingly. "Good. Keep that attitude. This industry can be cutthroat, but those who approach it with humility and a willingness to learn often go far." She paused, seeming to consider her next words carefully. "Your unique journey gives you a perspective that many in this industry lack. Don't be afraid to let that shine through in your work." As Alessandra moved away to speak with other models, Emily stood rooted to the spot, her mind whirling. Alessandra Rossi, one of the biggest names in fashion, had singled her out for praise. It was almost too much to process. The rest of the week passed in a whirlwind of activity. Emily attended workshops on runway walking, posing for photographs, and even a crash course in basic Italian. She explored the city in her free time, marveling at the blend of ancient architecture and cutting-edge fashion. Through it all, she kept in close contact with Maya, sharing every triumph and doubt. Maya's unwavering support and enthusiasm helped keep Emily grounded amidst the glitz and glamour of Milan's fashion scene. Finally, the day of the casting call arrived. Emily woke early, her stomach a knot of nerves. She went through her morning routine with meticulous care, making sure every hair was in place, every eyelash perfectly curled. As she made her way to the venue, she found herself surrounded by other models, all looking equally nervous and excited. The air thrummed with tension and anticipation. Inside, they were directed to a large waiting area. Emily found a seat next to Sophia, who gave her an encouraging smile. "Ready for this?" Sophia whispered. Emily took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." One by one, the models were called into the audition room. Emily tried to stay calm, running through the tips and advice she'd received over the past week. When her name was finally called, she stood on slightly shaky legs and made her way to the door. The audition room was brightly lit, with a long runway stretching down the center. At the end sat a panel of judges, including Alessandra Rossi herself. Emily's heart pounded in her ears as she took her place at the start of the runway. "Whenever you're ready, Miss Thompson," one of the judges called out. Emily closed her eyes for a moment, centering herself. She thought of Maya's unwavering support, of how far she'd come in her journey. She thought of Alessandra's words about letting her unique perspective shine through. With a deep breath, she opened her eyes and began her walk. Each step was purposeful, confident. She reached the end of the runway and struck a pose, letting all of her experiences, all of her growth shine through in her expression and stance. As she made her way back, she caught Alessandra's eye. The designer's face was impassive, but Emily thought she saw a glimmer of approval in her gaze. Back in the waiting area, Emily let out a shaky breath. She'd done it. Whatever the outcome, she'd faced her fears and walked that runway with everything she had. As Emily returned to the waiting area, a buzz of excitement filled the room. Other models gathered around her, eager to hear about her experience. "How was it?" Sophia asked, her eyes wide with anticipation. Emily took a deep breath, still processing the whirlwind of emotions she'd just experienced. "It was intense, but I think it went well. I just tried to focus on being myself and showing them what I could bring to the runway." "That's the best approach," another model chimed in. "They're looking for authenticity as much as they're looking for the right look." The conversation was cut short as the next name was called. Emily settled back into her seat, her heart still racing. She pulled out her phone, her fingers hovering over Maya's number. Part of her wanted to call her best friend immediately to share every detail of the experience. But another part of her wanted to wait, to process it all before trying to put it into words. Instead, she sent a quick text. "Just finished the casting. Call you later with all the details. Miss you." The response came almost immediately. "Can't wait to hear everything. You've got this, superstar." Emily smiled, feeling a wave of warmth wash over her. No matter what happened, she had people in her corner who believed in her. The rest of the day passed in a blur of nervous energy and hushed conversations. Models came and went from the audition room, each returning with a mixture of relief and anxiety etched on their faces. Emily found herself in deep conversation with Sophia and a few other models, swapping stories about their journeys into the fashion world. "I never thought I'd end up here," a tall redhead named Lila confessed. "I was studying to be an engineer when a photographer spotted me on campus. Next thing I knew, I was doing local fashion shows, and now, well, here I am in Milan." Emily nodded, understanding the feeling of unexpected paths. Life has a way of surprising us, doesn't it? A year ago, I couldn't have imagined being here either. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the windows of the waiting area, a hush fell over the room. Alessandra Rossi herself entered, her presence commanding immediate attention. "Thank you all for your patience and your performances today," she began, her voice carrying easily through the space. "We've seen incredible talent and potential, which makes our job both exciting and challenging. The final selections will be announced tomorrow morning. Until then, rest well, and remember, regardless of the outcome, each of you has already achieved something remarkable by being here today." With that, she swept out of the room, leaving a wake of whispers and speculation behind her. Emily found herself walking back to her hotel with Sophia and Lila, the three of them deciding to grab dinner together rather than spend the evening alone with their thoughts. They found a small family-run trattoria tucked away on a side street, the warm glow from its windows inviting them in. As they settled into a cozy booth, the smell of garlic and fresh herbs enveloping them, Emily felt some of the day's tension begin to melt away. "So," Sophia said once they had placed their orders, "what's everyone's story? How did you end up in the fashion world?" Lila repeated her tale of the campus photographer, adding more details about her initial reluctance and eventual embrace of modeling. When it was Emily's turn, she hesitated for a moment. She had grown comfortable with her identity, proud of her journey, but sharing it still felt vulnerable, especially in this new world she was entering. Taking a deep breath, she began. My path here has been unconventional. I've always loved fashion, but for a long time I didn't think it was a world I could be part of. Not just because of the competitiveness, but because I was struggling with my own identity. She paused, gauging their reactions. Seeing only open curiosity, she continued. I'm transgender. For years, I felt trapped in a body that didn't reflect who I truly was. It wasn't until I started my transition that I began to see modeling as a real possibility. Sophia reached across the table, squeezing Emily's hand. Thank you for sharing that with us. It must have taken incredible strength to go through that journey. Lila nodded in agreement. And now you're here, in Milan, auditioning for one of the biggest shows in fashion. That's amazing, Emily. Emily felt a lump form in her throat, touched by their immediate acceptance and support. Thank you. It hasn't always been easy, but moments like this, being here with you both after the day we've had, it makes it all worth it. Their food arrived, steaming plates of pasta and fragrant bread, momentarily pausing the conversation. As they dug in, savoring the authentic Italian flavors, the talk turned to lighter topics. Favorite designers, dream photo shoot locations, the best gelato spots in Milan. By the time they finished their meal, complete with a shared tiramisu that had them all groaning in delight, Emily felt as if she'd known Sophia and Lila for years rather than days. The bond formed in the pressure cooker of Fashion Week auditions was proving to be strong indeed. As they walked back to their respective hotels, plans already being made to meet for breakfast before the announcements, Emily felt a sense of peace settle over her. Whatever tomorrow brought, she had already gained so much from this experience: confidence, friendship, and a deeper understanding of herself. Back in her room, Emily finally called Maya, the events of the day spilling out in an excited rush. Em, that's incredible, Maya exclaimed when Emily had finished recounting the audition. I have a feeling you really impressed them, and it sounds like you've made some great friends, too. Emily flopped back on her bed, staring up at the ceiling. I really have. It's strange, Maya. A week ago, I was terrified of coming here, of not fitting in. But now, it feels like I've found my place, you know? I do know, Maya said softly. I've watched you grow into yourself over these past few years, Em. You've always had this light inside you. Now the rest of the world is finally getting to see it too. They talked for a while longer, Maya filling Emily in on the latest gossip from back home, providing a comforting touch of normalcy amidst the whirlwind of Milan Fashion Week. As she prepared for bed, Emily found herself standing in front of the mirror again. She studied her reflection, not with the critical eye she once had, but with a newfound appreciation. Every curve, every angle of her face told the story of her journey. She was Emily Thompson, model, friend, woman. And tomorrow she would face whatever challenges came her way with her head held high. The next morning dawned bright and clear, the sun casting a golden glow over Milan's rooftops. Emily woke early, her nerves making sleep impossible. She took her time getting ready, each step of her routine a small act of self-care and preparation. As promised, she met Sophia and Lila for breakfast at a nearby cafe. The normally bustling place was quieter than usual, filled mostly with models all sharing the same anticipatory energy. I barely slept, Lila confessed, stirring her cappuccino absently. I kept having dreams about tripping on the runway or showing up to the show in my pajamas. Sophia laughed, though there was a tightness around her eyes that betrayed her own nerves. I dreamt I went out on the runway and suddenly realized I was completely bald. Not exactly the look Alessandra Rossi is going for, I'd imagine. Emily smiled, grateful for the moment of levity. Well, at least if any of those things happen, we'll all be in it together, right? They clinked their coffee cups in a mock toast. the gesture silly but oddly comforting. As they made their way to the venue where the announcements would be made, Emily felt her phone buzz in her pocket. It was a text from Maya. "Whatever happens today, I'm so proud of you. You're my hero, Em. Go show them what you're made of." Emily clutched the phone to her chest for a moment, drawing strength from Maya's words. Then, squaring her shoulders, she walked into the building alongside her new friends. The atmosphere inside was electric, a mix of nervous energy and barely contained excitement. Emily, Sophia, and Lila found seats together, gripping each other's hands tightly as they waited for the announcements to begin. After what felt like an eternity, Alessandra Rossi took the stage, her presence immediately commanding the room's attention. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice warm but authoritative. "Before we begin, I want to thank each and every one of you for your participation this week. The talent and dedication we've seen have been truly inspiring." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the room. Fashion, at its core, is about transformation. It's about taking fabric and turning it into art, about taking a moment and turning it into a memory. But more than that, it's about personal transformation. Each of you, by being here, has already undergone a transformation. You've pushed yourselves, challenged yourselves, and grown in ways you may not even realize yet. Emily felt a lump form in her throat, Alessandra's words resonating deeply with her own journey. "Now, the moment you've all been waiting for," Alessandra continued. "When I call your name, please come up to the stage. These are the models who will be walking in our show this Fashion Week." The room held its collective breath as Alessandra began reading names from a list. With each name called, there was a mixture of cheers and disappointed sighs. Emily gripped Sophia and Lila's hands tighter, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure everyone around her must be able to hear it. "Sophia Larson!" Alessandra called out. Sophia let out a small gasp, her eyes wide with disbelief. Emily and Lila hugged her tightly before she made her way to the stage, her steps slightly unsteady but her smile radiant. More names were called. Emily's anxiety grew with each passing moment. She caught Lila's eye, seeing her own mix of hope and fear reflected there. "Lila Moretti." It was Lila's turn to gasp. She turned to Emily, tears shining in her eyes. "Good luck," she whispered before joining the growing group on stage. Emily sat alone now, her hands clenched in her lap. She closed her eyes, taking deep breaths to calm her racing heart. Whatever happened, she told herself, she had already achieved so much by being here. Emily Thompson. For a moment, Emily was sure she had imagined it, but then she heard it again, Alessandra's voice clear and certain. Emily Thompson. On shaky legs, Emily stood. The walk to the stage felt both endless and instantaneous. As she climbed the steps, she caught Alessandra's eye. The designer gave her a small nod, a hint of a smile playing at her lips. Emily took her place next to Sophia and Lila, the three of them exchanging tearful, joyous hugs. As Alessandra finished reading the names, Emily looked out over the crowd. Some faces showed disappointment, others relief. But there was a shared sense of respect and camaraderie that transcended the competitive nature of the event. "To those whose names were not called," Alessandra said once she had finished, "please know that this is not an ending, but a beginning. Use this experience as fuel for your passion, as a stepping stone on your journey. The fashion world is vast, and there is room for all kinds of talent and beauty." She turned to address the group on stage. "And to our chosen models, congratulations. The real work begins now. We have a week to prepare for one of the most prestigious events in the fashion calendar. I expect nothing less than your absolute best. Together, we will create something truly unforgettable." With that, the meeting was adjourned. The room erupted into a flurry of activity, congratulations, commiserations, and a buzz of excitement for what was to come. Emily found herself swept up in a whirlwind of hugs and congratulations. Sophia and Lila were by her side, the three of them laughing and crying in equal measure. "We did it," Sophia kept saying, her voice filled with awe. We actually did it. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out Patreon for a lot more content and early access to YouTube videos.